and you could have great times. I mean, I used to go for lunch most days with him. It was quite a strange thing. Nobody really picked up on it, but I used to work in the afternoons when I went to Rangers because I actually kept my job going, and I used to go for lunch with Coop and Bobby Russell. Derek Parling used to come as well. I got friendly with Derek, and then I would go to work in the afternoons because that was me. I wanted to just keep working away. But Coop, we kept touch over the years. Always great friends, great player. I would say, in terms of ability wise, the best player that I played with in terms of skill, no doubt about it. Coop got a hard time when he went to Rangers. Even that treble winning season at first, his form wasn't great that season, and a lot to do with the fact was the players were quite hard. The older guys at the club were quite hard on you. Now I was used to that because that's the way it is at the top clubs. You had to have a strong mentality, thick skin in terms of what people said to you. Coop was getting affected, and quite a lot of times I was having to say to Coop when we're going for lunch and things, they're only making a joke, don't bother about it, don't be upset, because he was getting affected by it a little bit. It took him a wee while to adjust to that, and I felt I was able to help him there. But the other aspect of it was that Coop, I feel that he's also a guy that thrives on getting appreciated and people liking what he does, and I think that from that point of view, I think even his days at Motherwell when they gave him a free role, if Coop had been playing in Spain or Italy or something like that, he would have been a playmaker. He wouldn't have been a winger. Winger's a Scottish thing. You get thrown, if you can't tackle anybody in Scotland, you get put in the wing. Yeah. And that's what happened with Coop. But Coop probably would have done a much better job even for Rangers if they'd just given Coop the freedom to go and play. He would have destroyed teams. Yeah. He did it anyway, but he would have destroyed more teams at the highest level.
And with him being a personal friend of yours, in the later years when the rival Graham Souness, would you agree that was the best thing that happened to Cooper as a player?
Yeah, I think so. I think that got him going again, Coop, and I think Graham Souness appreciated what Coop was like. So that he had a good spell at the end of his career. He moved on as well. As I say, Motherwell, he was very good there. Did brilliantly winning in the cup winning side. So I used to keep in touch with him and to chat away to him. Coop, I used to laugh. I had a laugh at him because I used to blame him for my transfer because we were playing in the Tennant Caledonian tournament in Brighton. Were playing in it as well, and the first game we beat West Ham 3-1, and I scored 2, and Coop made both goals. And then on the Sunday, the final, we played Kilmarnock, and I scored, and Coop made my goal again. And when Alan Mullery signed me for Brighton, he said, I was really impressed right away. I saw your goal scoring ability, and you and Coop are linking up. And he did. He told me at that point he tried to sign both of us. Yeah. But Brighton were wanting me and Coop, and they made an offer, and John Greig said you can have one of them. And I used to laugh with Alan Mullery and said you get the wrong one. I said you get a David Cooper, but he says, well, he was looking mainly for a midfield player, but he realised that Cooper could see that when I made the runs, Coop was absolutely brilliant at spotting you when you made the run, got you into position. And I used to let him have his wee cuddle at the ball first, because Coop wouldn't always play a first time ball. He needed 1 or 2 touches, and then you made the run, and then he found you, and he saw you running, and he
inch perfect
passes, and you were in. So I would always appreciate that. But I used to laugh about it and say it was all your fault I get transferred. But we kept in touch, and actually when he died, I was due to meet him the next day for lunch. We were meeting up for lunch when I got a phone call from STV to say, would you like to make some comments about Davy Cooper? And I said, what, you doing a programme on him? And they said, oh, you not heard? And I was like, no. He says, he's died. And I couldn't believe it. I was totally stunned, shocked. Worst situation you can ever imagine when you get told something like that, because I was meant to be meeting him for lunch the very next day.
Yeah. So that was the late great Davy Cooper. So just looking at your career overall, but mainly Rangers. What would you say your best game was for you, and the best game you played in?
There's different ones. I think a great thrill for me was the fact that my first Old Firm game is always one I'll remember. We played Celtic, and it was 2-0 at half time, and I've got to give Jock Wallace credit again. Very rarely I've ever, in my time in football, I've ever known a manager when you're losing to come in with such a positive half-time team talk. We're down 2-0 at Ibrox, and I didn't think we played badly, but normally that doesn't matter a bit. And we came in and Big Jock said, right, sit down, and he got an angry voice, and he said, listen, you've been a better team, you've outplayed them, you've passed the ball better, you've created better chances, they've scored 2 lucky goals. If you play like that in the second half, you'll win this game. I couldn't believe it, what a positive talk it was. And I was thinking, well, I believe that as well. So we went out in the second half and we played really well, and I scored the first goal and the third goal. Third goal was an easier one. It was just what Peter Latchford had dropped the ball and I just got it, squeezed it over the line. My first goal was a good one. It was Derek Johnson with a fantastic little touch to me and a shot into the corner, put us back in the game at 2-1, and then Derek got the equaliser. So that was a memorable game. Your first Old Firm game, and I have to say as well is that it was the first Old Firm game I'd ever been at. I hadn't even been to see one because I'd been playing obviously in the game, and my parents wouldn't let me go to Rangers Celtic games because they always were worried about me when I was younger. But so that was my first Old Firm game as a player and a spectator. So that doesn't come much better than that. There's been a few though. I mean, the first cup final I played in as well, I scored the winning goal in the League Cup final in '78, and that was a great thrill. Made the first goal for Coop, and then scored the winner that day too. So that was terrific.
And that just back on the Rangers Celtic game there, and winning that first game you played in, how does it feel as a Rangers supporter, as a boy, playing in the biggest game, possibly the biggest game in the world, and then scoring that goal? How was that feeling? It
was amazing. It was a marvellous feeling, and it was, you know, at the time you really can't take it in to an extent. You've played, you won the game, and everybody's going, oh, well done, that was fantastic. And it was great to come back from, as I say, 2-0 down. So it's a great memory. You know, that's the great thing about what you want from life and what you want from your football career are memories. You know, because you know you can't keep playing on, you can't keep talking. All you can think about is the past, and you get good memories and bad memories.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, that's a good memory. It was a fantastic day, great experience.
Fantastic. So that was the highs of your career with the Rangers, and your best game and your best performances. But then came John Greig into the managerial role, and I believe your career changed.
It was a funny thing. Greggy and I've got a lot of respect for John Greig, no question that. I think he's a Rangers legend, and you can't take away from what he did. But you know, I'd never had the best relationships, and it actually started, fun enough, the day after I signed, my first day in at training. I'm walking in and I met John Greig at the door with Sandy Jardine. They'd just arrived in a taxi, I think, from the station. They'd come aboard by train from Edinburgh, and I welcomed him. And now John Greig's the captain of the Rangers, and the first thing he said to me was, "I don't know why we've signed you. We've got other wingers." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to be playing in the wing." And he went, "All right." But I always look back to that and I thought, you know, he maybe think it, but do you need to say it? You know what I mean? So that was a kind of strange thing, and he was never greatly encouraging to me as a player in that first season. To be honest with you, you got on with it, and if he'd said anything to you, it was usually critical of something you'd done or didn't do, or whatever, and fine. But then taking over as manager, and you know, to be fair, he was very good in terms of his coaching, and his tactical stuff was good. What he lacked was man management, and I think that's ultimately why he didn't make it as a manager at Rangers, because he failed to manage the players properly, and that's a key element of being a manager. It's not about your tactical knowledge or your knowledge of the game in terms of, you know, the training and all that. But having said that, I think also his first season he was very unlucky, and I've given him credit for it, that in the first season he was manager, we should have won the treble. That was probably my worst experience as a Rangers player, was the game at Celtic Park when we lost 4-2 and Celtic won the league. That was a nightmare, and that was Greggy's first season. You know, it was, and a lot of it was to do with injuries and suspensions and things like that. And also, if I think back to the games where it was bad, the weather was bad that year, and we ended up playing a lot of games in a short period of time with injuries and suspensions and all that, and therefore we started to lose games because of circumstances. And that was one of the factors that I do believe that if that hadn't happened that year, John Greig might have started with a treble win, and also, we'll talk about this later, as a European win as well, because we did do fantastically well in Europe. But you know what, he never recaptured that season. After that, I don't know whether it was because of changes he made to the team, what he was like, the team never really got going again, and it was a shame. And I didn't want to leave in 1980. I've told the story before of how I was forced to go. I'd just signed a 5-year contract, so even though John Greig and I weren't close, I wanted to stay at Rangers. I did not want to go, but he forced me to go, and in the end up, because of what happened, the way Rangers went after that, I was probably the right thing to get out.
So we'll go back onto the John Greig era in a minute. It's a fascinating story that punters, for some bizarre reason, love to tell the story, and Smith must score.
Yeah.
So just if you want to say a few words on on your side of the events on that big day?
I've nothing else to say other than the fact is I take full responsibility for my miss, because at the end of the day, I put us 1-0 up. I scored the first goal that day, and I was actually playing striker that day. So I was playing striker because what happened was we'd sold our striker, and the guy we brought in, we swapped our striker. The guy we brought in, Terry Connor, was actually cup tied, so they had to put me up front. So I played in the run in the cup up to that point. So and that day I was in a goal scoring run at that time. I think I'd scored like 5 goals in the 5 games previous to the cup final, and then I scored that day as well. And so having scored the goal, thinking you're in a good position, and we get to extra time, last minute, and the ball came through to me, and I actually thought that Gary Bailey would come out to try and close me down. So I hit the ball hard and low in at his feet, thinking that'll beat him, but he actually dived, and he made a mistake by diving, but it was a mistake that actually proved costly to me, because it turned out if I had just delayed it a split second, and with him diving, even a little dummy, I could have picked my spot. So I shot, he saved it, I tried to get the rebound, and he scrambled and got the ball. So I've spoken many times about it. I take full responsibility. It was my fault. I should have scored the winner.
I'd like to speak about the fabulous European run with PSV, Juventus and Cologne.
Yeah, well we started off, I mean, we didn't get enough credit, probably getting a bit more now than we got at the time, but the 2 wins we had to beat Juventus were favourites for the European Cup that year, and Juventus had about 8 of the Italian team from the World Cup that had just been played. Fantastic team of players, with Bettiga and Causio and all these people, Cabrini, so Dino Zoffa in goals. We lost 1-0 in Turin, and to be fair, it was 1-0 going on about 8, and it was a marvellous performance from Peter McCloy in Turin, and everybody just said, Rangers were really, really lucky. Then we came to Ibrox and beat them 2-0, and I was fortunate to get the winning goal that night. I was on a committee in UEFA with Dino Zoff, and I was we chatted to him one night and reminded him of that game, and he remembered it, and I had to apologise and say, well, I'm also the guy who got the winning goal, and he laughed, but it was a header I scored with that day, and we won 2-0, and that was fantastic. Then went to Eindhoven after drawing 0-0 at home, and I really did feel that we should have won at home, but we didn't, and they had a great record at home. Eindhoven, never been beaten, and they had a lot of the Dutch international players, and we went over there, and I always remember Greggy's tactics. The main thing we spoke about was keeping it tight for 20 minutes, and if we keep it tight for 20 minutes, we've got a real chance. And I always remember, I think I looked up at the scoreboard that was there when Eindhoven scored. I think it was 28 seconds on the clock. So 28 seconds was not quite the 20 minutes we tried to hold the game for. So it was then plan B, and we're all walking back to the kick-off, and we're all looking at each other in a chat, and we're saying, what we do here? And we just, one of the boys, I think it was Alan McDonald, just said, let's just go and play. Let's just play our normal game now. Forget this European stuff. And we went out and played. Now 2 each was putting us through, and then we get a marvellous goal. One of the things that always amazes me about it was, and I was always annoyed about it, that Archie McPherson was doing the commentary, and he never mentions the fact that it's me that hits the crossfield ball. I hit a 60-yard pass from one side of the pitch to the other to Tommy McLean that opened up Eindhoven, and McLean got the ball. And Archie McPherson just said in the commentary, there's a long ball to McLean. Never mentions it's me. And all over the years, people have always just said it was Tommy McLean and Bobby Russell that got that goal. I was involved in it, and so I'm glad to put the record straight here and say I'm pleased to take my credit for being involved in the goal. But it was a fantastic goal. 2 each was putting us through anyway, but Bobby Russell did brilliantly that night in scoring it.
And before we go into the Cologne game, I want to mention that night in Eindhoven, the Rangers support was fantastic. It was an awesome crowd.
Amazing. It was amazing support. The Rangers, I mean, were well supported in European games, no doubt about it. Even in Turin we had a big support, but that night in Eindhoven was fantastic, and I think they loved it as well. I mean, they really, the people. We got back to the airport, the fans were there, and they were loving it, and they were singing away and going crazy because it was a major result. Quarter-finals, that was us in, and having played 2 of the best teams in Europe and beating them, beating both teams was amazing, and it was a great game to play in, but it was a great result, there's no question in that. Then we went up to the quarterfinals, and as I say, it was same year as I'm talking about, Greggy's first year in charge, terrible weather conditions, a lot of games cancelled, we started to get pile up